We've just had a beautiful lunch. Thank you, Irene, and thank you for the extra 15 minutes. We will use it wisely. We've just had a beautiful lunch, so I don't want you to fall asleep. So if those who can, please stand, and we're going to take a couple of deep breaths and shake out our hands and feet. So we give it a couple of, 1 minute. Nice deep breath, stand up, stretch your arms. We'll do it here too. Nice deep breath, inhale and exhale. Good job. And then shake out your hands and your feet. And if I had some music, we'd do that too. All right, and then just give yourselves a big round of applause. Thank you. You may now be seated again. And please welcome our panellists. So as Irene just outlined, and I would ask for quiet as we introduce our speakers. Thank you. We've just had beautiful food, and we are going to talk food. And the topic is food security and technology. In Australia, we have a famous poem, and it's by Dorothea Mackellar. It's called My Country, which sums up the power, the beauty, and the gifts of nature. I won't read the whole poem, but a small section. I love a sunburned country, a land of sweeping plains, of ragged mountain ranges, of droughts and flooding rains. All our nations share these extremes in different ways. And we know they are becoming more extreme and the conditions more volatile. Last year, as Irene mentioned at GSW in Madrid, we spoke about water scarcity. Today, we see the devastating consequences unfolding in real time. Brazilian coffee farms that are withering, the worst drought in 40 years, American cattle herds shrinking, weather extremes, there's conquest now, war, famine, and increasingly climate change make sourcing our food needs increasingly a challenge. We see it short term. The price of our cafe lattes go up a lot. Our olive oil goes up. Wheat, the price of beef, and of course, chocolate. And then in nations where people go chronically hungry, it presents an even bigger long-term challenge. And I'd like to consider today there are 700 million plus people who are in that chronic state of hunger. Medium, longer term, there's a big challenge, and outcome familiar to us is this growing food insecurity. And I've defined that today, which is when people can't access the food they need to live their fullest lives. But while traditional agriculture struggles against increasingly unpredictable conditions, some revolutionary technologies are emerging that could fundamentally transform how we feed our growing humanity. And I think there's a figure from 8.2 billion to something like 9.7 billion by 2050. So there's a discussion today with our panellists. Is the question whether technology can help solve our food security crisis. Can we scale and invest fast enough and democratise the solutions, and importantly train and uplift our food systems? Our guests today represent the cutting edge of the transformation, from soil health innovation that could revolutionise farming productivity to a little microalgae that pack complete nutrition, to plant-based plastics that could are replacing petroleum polymers in our food system. Now, our three guests we're going to hear from them each, and then I'm going to ask you to think of some to participate in the conversation. So I'm going to open it out when they're ready for some questions. So we'll get to that. Please participate. So first up, I'll introduce them, and then they'll each come in and present their perspectives. Dr. Katrin Grahmann, she's research group leader at Leibniz Centre for Agricultural Landscape Research. Dr. Grahmann is an agronomist, and international research experience across Europe and Latin America is her background. Now, her work focuses on soil health, which is fundamental, and nutrient dynamics under different cropping systems. Our second speaker today will be Ori Bjornsson, who's the CEO of Algalif from Iceland. Algalif is a leading supplier of high-grade natural. Now, this is a microalgae. I'm going to get Ori to describe that for you. The company's mission is to help solve the nutritional needs of current and future generations through the development and delivery of sustainable, high-quality microalgal ingredients. He's worked in pharma for 25 years. He tells me this is his best job. And our third speaker today is Sharina Perry. She's the CEO of Utopia Plastics. She's from Oklahoma. And Sharina is the founder and inventor of Utopia Plastics, a plant-based alternative to, as we've discussed, to petroleum-based polymers. Now, she's the originator and the developer of the Utopia model, if you think about a sustainable ecosystem system. Her story of how she came to do this is fascinating in itself. That's a whole story on its own, isn't it, Sharina? Please put your hands together and welcome our three guests, and then Dr. Grahmann is going to speak first. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Narelle, for this introduction. I would like to use my time to explore with you how technologies, both traditional and also digital ones, can strengthen our food systems in the face of the accelerating climate change. This is the thing, right? Okay. Yeah. So, we just heard our food systems are under immense pressure. We have droughts, floods, wildfires, everything fueled by climate change. And this is declining our global harvests. Just this year, Germany saw its driest spring in a century. And at the same time, we have wars in Ukraine, in the Middle East that also disrupt the global grain supplies. So this map here is somehow forecasting what could most likely happen in a couple of decades if we are not changing our habits. So the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change used this climate scenario, assuming that we will still continue to rely on fossil fuels and that global temperatures will increase by 2 to 3% until 2100. And the study concludes that over 50% of the people in the most vulnerable regions may be undernourished by 2050. The figure on the right side is illustrating that the number of people facing severe hunger and food insecurity has more than doubled since 2016, with dramatic populations in Sudan, Gaza, and also Haiti, Mali. Beyond being affected by climate change, agriculture is also a major driver of it. Agri-food systems account for about 1/3 of the global anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. Also, global meat supply is still increasing from about 40 kgs in 2012 to 45 kgs per capita in 2022. So you see, agriculture is both being harmed but also causing environmental stress and thereby also contributing to push the planetary boundaries. If exceeded, this could then destabilize our Earth system, and this then leads to irreversible environmental changes. The excess in nitrogen and phosphorus, for example, can lead to eutrophication. And these excess nutrients in water bodies, they cause excessive algae growth. And this algae growth is then depleting the oxygen in water and harms aquatic life. We have seen that just recently at the Mexican Riviera Maya. You can see a picture there. with very excessive seaweed growth affecting not only the marine organism but also the tourism there, which is the major income in that region. Let's zoom into soil, because that's my topic. Soil is often overlooked, but absolutely vital to combat food insecurity. A total of 33% of global soils are moderately to highly degraded as a result of erosion, of compaction, pollution, acidification, salinization. And most of the soils today fall short on their optimal organic carbon levels. This weakens their productivity. It increases the risk of erosion and also worsens the water stress for crops. In the European Union, 83% of agricultural soils contain residues of pesticides. About 1/3 of the land suffers from unsustainable water erosion, and another 23% of land is harmed by subsoil compaction caused by very heavy machinery. In contrast, healthy soils are resilient. They retain water, they reduce emissions, they support biodiversity. But having a healthy soil requires not just awareness, it demands action and investment into technologies. Healthy soils under agricultural use represent, in my opinion, the key in decreasing food insecurity, mitigating climate change, and also stabilizing our planetary boundaries. What do I mean when I say technologies? Technologies in agriculture range from very traditional knowledge on crop rotation to also advanced digital knowledge like agricultural robots. From data to tools to practices, these technologies have to lead us towards resilience. Otherwise, they don't make sense. But they also must be adopted by many people, and they should also be inclusive. This requires comprehensive efforts for capacity training, for knowledge transfer, and often also for economic incentives for farmers. In the following slides, I would like to show you a couple of examples for technologies used and applied around the globe and how they can help us to increase food security and agricultural resilience. Crop rotations appears to be an old hat, but still is the most important technology we have in agriculture. But we also know that the number of crop species globally is decreasing. Niche crops are rarely being produced, and farmers simplify their crop rotations. In single regions, we see that they also have intense monocultures. Crop rotations are important because they break soil disease cycles, and crops with different root systems that you can see there in the picture can also take up nutrients and water from different depths, like shown here with the perennial wheat. Certain crops have even deep compacting functions, so they decompact the soil like tuber crops, or they leave nutrients in the soil like legumes. Crop rotations with leguminous pastures, like implemented in the Pampas region in Latin America, generate soils. They boost their fertility and they cut pesticide needs. Traditional systems like the milpa is used in Mesoamerica to produce crops like maize, beans, and squash simultaneously without employing pesticides or additional fertilizers. Spatial diversification practices like strip cropping here on the right picture, also called relay cropping, intercropping, mixed cropping, increase water use efficiency and stabilize yields. And those diversification practices also reduce production risk for farmers and diversify their income. Conservation agriculture is another known technology where soil tillage, the movement of soil with machinery, is minimized, and where we leave crop residues like straw after harvest on the soil surface to protect the soil. And we have to rotate crops. And this reduces erosion, retains soil moisture, and also lowers the required machinery inputs for fuel. Another cropping system technology are agroforestry systems. We heard now about the role and importance of trees. Agroforestry is mixing trees with crops and or livestock and can work as a water smart and biodiversity enhancing and even economically diverse way of farming. The trees in the cropping system act as shields against wind erosion, create shade, and then change the microclimate of the crops, which even supports pollinators. Let's dive into technologies. Digital agriculture technologies applied in precision farming use satellite and drone information, GPS, and artificial intelligence to target the water, fertilizer, and pest control according to the crop's needs. This can happen at the field scale, at the management zone, or even already at the plant scale. And those precise decisions made by machinery and the farmer save resources, maximize yields, and minimize environmental hazards like over-fertilization. Agri-photovoltaic systems, that's maybe something new. A more recently tested cropping system technology that allows us to grow food and to harvest solar energy at the same land. Elevated or vertical panels provide shade or protection against extreme weather events like hail, reduce water loss, and allow the cultivation of marginal lands. Flower strips could then, for example, be planted directly under the panels and even provide habitat for insects and pollinators. Agri-photovoltaics can be used for grassland, also crop production, and there are already several examples and options available. In Germany, the regulations for agri-photovoltaics allow a maximum of 10% for energy production or panel coverage, leaving 90% for production purposes. If digital technologies are combined with crop diversification, we obtain a design of cropping systems that can increase diversification at the spatial, temporal, and also genetic scale. And in those new field arrangements that you can see on these pictures, like spot farming, pixel cropping, agroforestry, agri-photovoltaics, not only the fertilizer or plants are adjusted to the local conditions, but also we select crops regarding their site-specific needs. But you can imagine, as field sizes and diversification is increasing, we also substantially increase the complexity of those systems, which is then very difficult for farmers to manage those complex systems. And farming already involves working long hours with very few breaks during harvest, for example, and many farmers face high levels of stress and fatigue. So how can we manage this complexity in order to get our sustainable systems? One of the solutions that I'm investigating is the use of autonomous field robots to manage those complex, diversified cropping systems. Agricultural robots now perform already activities like weeding, planting, even harvesting, and reduce the reliance on pesticides, on human labor and fossil fuels for tasks that are very repetitive and time-consuming, like, for example, mechanical weeding. And robots allow farmers to scale sustainable practices. Although still in its very early stages, the agricultural robotics market is rapidly evolving. Startups are introducing increasingly versatile solutions, ranging from very task-specific tools to modular, Lego-like tools that can adapt to different crops and also interventions. A significant impact on global markets is expected within 20 years, where autonomous machines can already play a relevant role in farming. Nature-based and digital solutions together give us tools to deal with climate change and food insecurity. The technologies exist, and we have also built a lot of knowledge, but the adoption is still very low. And now it's up on us to rethink how we actually want to produce food. The bioeconomy lens helps us to see agriculture as part of a bigger circular system. And we are not just talking about food, we also talk about energy, soil, biodiversity. That all is part of the big puzzle. It's important to point out that the real change only happens when farmers, researchers, policymakers, tech developers, companies work together on the ground, in living labs. And in my opinion, that's the only way how we can build systems that truly last. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Grahmann. Could I have some water for our guests just while you're coming down to sit down? And I'd like to now please welcome Ore Bjornsson, the CEO of Algalif from Iceland. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm very pleased to be here today again. I will start with a question, and the question is, can microalgae be food? In my opinion, the answer is very simple, but I'm supposed to be here for 10 minutes talking, so I will try to talk about something else and give you the answer in the end. So, who are we? Algalif is a biotech company based in Iceland. We cultivate microalgae in tubular glass systems indoors with artificial light. So you can already hear that it's a quite expensive approach. Our main product and almost the only product so far is an ingredient called astaxanthin, and I bet most of you have never heard about it, but all of you that had lunch here just consumed some astaxanthin, because astaxanthin is the pigment that makes the salmon pink. And without astaxanthin, the farmed salmon would be gray and nobody would like to eat it. So this was a very good coincidence for me that we actually have a live example of astaxanthin use. But it was synthetic astaxanthin, and ours is natural. The synthetic is just a pigment. The natural astaxanthin is both a pigment and has various health benefits, mainly as an anti-inflammatory ingredient. You can find it in few natural sources. The microalgae is by far the best one with 5% astaxanthin, but the sockeye salmon has quite a lot, but you need to eat around 3 kilograms a day to get your daily dose of astaxanthin, so it's not a very easy task. The benefits, they are quite many, but the easiest to explain is anti-inflammatory. It's anti-inflammatory for liver, for heart, for joints. It helps your bone health, and so on and so forth. It's the strongest natural antioxidant you can find in nature, and that's what we are basically aiming at utilizing, and we are aiming at making it a common supplement similar to omega-3, where a lot of people take omega-3 because they know it helps them and it is good for health. Our market is still very small, so we are probably selling astaxanthin to 12 to 15 million people every day, while you have omega-3 with 400 to 500 million people consuming it every day. So we have a way to go. The production process is in tubular glass, 54 millimeter wide tubes. We have around 500 kilometers in our plant, and that gives us around 1 million liters of active production volume. And this might sound like something, but it is actually very small. We produce around 280 kilograms a day of biomass, and in 1 year we produce 5,000 kilograms of the astaxanthin pure. So all numbers are very small, but fortunately for us, the price is very high. It's a rather simple process indeed. We start at an agar plate, and then 6 months later we harvest. But we have various steps in between where we increase the volume slowly. We go to 200 milliliters, 1 liter, 10 liters, and so on. And at each stage, we need to be very careful with all the micro details, because if we do not, then our productivity will collapse, and then there is no profit to be made, and the company would close. We have very good staff. We have 25 different nationalities with different backgrounds, and we are very fortunate to be able to attract people to work in our company. We try to create good moral and good environment, and it seems like it is working, and this is the cornerstone of our success. So this is what we want to be. We hope that we can be the best algae company. It's not a very tough competition because it's a micro industry, and therefore it was a sensible decision for me to go into this and try to be best in something. We also know that we need to serve our customers. If we are reliable, if we serve quality, and if we do it on time, then they will come back, and this is mostly happening. We have had a bit of a struggle lately because the demand is quite good, but I believe we are getting things under control again. And we are happy with the happiness of our co-workers. They are staying with us for long. The turnover is very low, and the core of the team, both scientists, management, and production staff, have been with us for years and years. These are the numbers. We are 80 people. We produce 100 tons a year. We use 7.5 megawatts of electricity constantly throughout the year, and this is equal to a town of 10,000 people or even more. So you see that this is a very expensive food source, but for a specialist ingredient, it's still very attractive. We have total cost in the company, and this is not only the production cost, it's the overhead, and everything is $15 million, and the total revenue is around $35 million, so it's a very profitable business, but it's not a good source of food. The way we can contribute to the food production in the world is to use our technology, to use our ability to help others to do different species of algae in different countries, where you can use sunlight, when you can use natural resources. You do not need 80 people to grow 100 tons. You maybe need one person to grow 100 tons if you are growing the right species in the right conditions. We are also focusing on discovering new ingredients, and this is the key in our approach. We want to create complicated, difficult to make ingredients that can enhance productivity of other food sources. And we have a very interesting program going on now where we are kind of creating a replacement for pesticides out of microalgae that are totally harmless to both us, the crops and the plants, and of course to the environment in general. But it kills fungi and helps us to increase the output of the fields. These are the things we can help with, and just to throw out a few more numbers. I mean, we use in our cultivation around 360 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of biomass. This is apparently quite a good number, because if you are growing beef, I think you use 10 or 15,000 liters to make 1 kilogram of beef. If you're growing rice, it's 2,000-3,000 liters of water for 1 kilogram. So we're definitely conserving water, but we are wasting a lot of energy and a lot of workforce to cultivate our algae. So we have to look at the whole picture. We cannot only look at one parameter like the water. We need to look at everything. And in that case, we can thrive on specialized ingredients, but we cannot produce food, at least not in Iceland. But maybe one day and even soon we can do it in sunny countries where we can keep the water evaporation under control. So this is what we can do, and I think it's a good option to look into, but we are not going to change the world in 1 or 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. And I'm learning how to pronounce that. I think we all should. Astaxanthin. Is that correct? Astaxanthin. And rest assured, no algae was harmed in the making of his speech. Please welcome now our third speaker, Sharina Perry, CEO of Utopia Plastics. And Sharina is going to speak from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Since I only feel like I'm about an inch taller than this podium, I'm going to move around. You know, earlier today, there was a comment made about the word sustainability, and that in some parts of the world, particularly if we're talking about in the U.S., we don't currently have an administration that's focused on it. But the reality is, administration or not, the lives and where we find ourselves in the world, we cannot miss the reality of sustainability. In the U.S., we talk about sustainability being around people, planet, profit. In other parts of the world, it's the environment, our society, and our economy. But I want you today, what we're going to talk about is what sustainability really means, the business of how we think about our natural resources, and why and how we built a sustainable ecosystem called Utopia. This particular topic is on food security. And the reality is many parts of the world deal with a significant amount of food insecurity. And until we start really rethinking how we use our natural resources, we'll continue to suffer. The Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN recently reported that 1/3 of the food grown in the world ends up being waste. Not only does that affect food outcomes and create food insecurity, but it also has that waste emits a fair amount of carbon emissions, thus resulting from harmful environmental impacts. The why of Utopia is really centered around this issue, the issue of sustainability, global bans around plastics. And so our development really took a deep dive and a focus on how do we address this issue? How do we do so without creating another problem? How do we keep manufacturers in jobs? How do we keep employees without manufacturers having to retool their equipment? How do we make sure that we save our trees, marine life, and do so and steward it? How do we create an opportunity for farmers and landowners, especially those that are disadvantaged? How do we use our most valuable resource, the land? How do we build economics in local communities? That seems like a lot of questions to ask. But those questions have remained at our forefront, and if you have an opportunity to visit our website, utopiaplastics.com, it is the ethos that drives us. But for today, I want you to focus on what sustainability truly means. It's not about how much less of a harmful thing we do or how much less of a harmful material, but true sustainability is centered around the positive impact that we make on our environment, our society, and our economy. And with that, that requires intentionality. For us, we really had to figure out, how do we address this in a very holistic way? How do we address sustainability and build a business at the same time? The creation of the Utopia model is our sustainable ecosystem business model that drives supply chain. It has been proven to be a model that can be adapted among broad industries. For us particularly, it's farming, processing, manufacturing, and distribution. Eden Grow handles our relationships with farmers. Utopia Solutions is the developer of our materials. Utopia Plastics is a trademark patented brand. We heard about trademarks and patents earlier. Utopia Brands is the sole distributor of our resins. And in doing that, what we do is we create pathways with strategic partnerships for those who have a strong foothold in their industry to help develop solutions. Again, our Utopia model companies are strictly focused on the positive impact that we make on our environment, our society, and our economy. It starts by intentionally thinking about crops. When we talk about food security and we talk about agriculture, the crops that we use absorb carbon at 4 to 5 times the rate of trees. They remove heavy metals from the soil. They add nutrients to the soil. They are a soil remediator. They are a low water crop. We don't use any pesticides, nor do we use any fertilizers. They are considered a soil remediator. Cover crops aren't new. In fact, any farmer that might grow a wheat or a soy, there will be a time in their growth cycle that they will have to stop, and they will have to plant something to rejuvenate or add nutrients back into the soil. Essentially, cover crops have been around since the dawn of mankind. We also do not use any chemical process in our crops because we understand the value of crops. Here is an image of an oat processing facility that was located in Kentucky in the U.S. There we took that processing facility and we retrofitted it to create a clean loop. In that process, we do decorticating, milling, blending, bagging, drying to prepare our materials for going to pelletizing. What's the output from there? It's Utopia Plastics resins that are a game changer to leverage the benefits of plastics while at the same time understanding the integral benefits that exist with plant material. Our materials are universal. They can be used in every plastics application without a manufacturer remodifying their equipment. They're durable. They hold up to heat, moisture. They're moisture resistant and heat resistance, which we'll talk about later. They're natural looking. We also are able to deliver this solution in an affordable way and also built a powerful brand around what we do. What you see here are some of Utopia Plastics resins. On your immediate left-hand side in the lower corner is our plant-based alternative to polypropylene 2,4 melt. That would be traditionally used in what you might see as a piece of cutlery or disposable cutlery. Above that, or a straw even, above that is that same material repelletized and recycled and repelletized 4 different times. On the lower side is our plant-based alternative to low-density polyethylene 2 melt. This material would traditionally be used for products like a bag or even films or coatings. We also did not feel like we could truly be a solution to plastics if we didn't develop something for the plastics industry itself. Above that material is our master formulation. The monomer properties of this plant material are able to break the polymer chain of petroleum, thus turning them to an eco-friendly product. While there is still much research to be done, I ask the question, how many of you have heard of a term called microplastics? The reality of microplastics are real, even though we're continuing to study the outcomes associated with it. That is perhaps one of the single things when we're talking about packaging that is affecting health and food outcomes the most. The reports that manufacturers have seen with using Utopia Plastics resin is not only are they a drop-in replacement, but one of the things I'm most proud of is there's no harmful releasing of VCOs into the environment. Meaning when an employee is in a manufacturing facility using Utopia Plastics, they are not inhaling any harmful carbons or fumes. In fact, manufacturers report it smells like you're making cake. Also, there's no minor profile adjustments mean we are now able to run our material at lower temperatures and get greater yields. Again, it is a drop-in replacement. Our materials are stronger, yet they are lighter weight. They have significant moisture barrier properties, which again we'll talk about in just a moment, easily conversion and the reduction of waste as well, because it can be reinserted during the manufacturing process. What you see here, I don't necessarily want you to focus on products, although all of the products you see are made with Utopia Plastics. It's really about the process. Extrusion with a thin wall makes a straw, or injection mold with the ability to print makes a pharmaceutical grade pill container, elevator buttons, waste receptacles, plastic bags, a trash can that is both flexible and rigid, cutlery. In the two images on the bottom, one is me actually in a food manufacturing facility where the material has to be able to convert in line to take 80 sausage patties at a frozen drop rate very quickly and take that film and convert it into a bag and seal in the process. The other is an image of Irish USA, which has operations throughout the country. That is their first introduction of a storage container made with Utopia Plastics at the Inspired Home Show. That was the first year. The next year, Iris introduced shelves of products made with Utopia Plastics for various applications at the next Inspired Home Show. Our materials have been used, and we talked about the benefits of cover crops, adding nutrients back to the soil. What we found with urban farmers was an interesting discovery, and this particularly is around grow. You see, these farmers had used Utopia Plastics as an agricultural liner. What they experienced was 4 times the yield, with more nutrient-rich crops, moist soil, no presence of weeds, and no presence of pests during the process. Between 120 to 140 days, they had such significant degradation that they were able to till the material back into the soil and have healthier soil for the next time that they planted. Our material has been tested also for its barrier. One of the things about any alternative created is really whether it will hold up in the application process. After 3 years of walking through the process, our materials were approved by TMS and Hy-Vee for distribution for the McDonald's organization. But what they had to also understand is our material, would there be any presence of odor? Would there be any transfer of heat with a hot coffee cup or even hot fries? Their testing results proved that it held up far more advanced. In fact, this past year, our approval led to us being the first raw material that would ever be exported from the U.S. into the Asia market because they see the long-term benefits of our material. A 6-month test was done by a lead engineer within the state of New Jersey around our material, a bag made with Utopia Plastics next to a Ziploc freezer bag. How many of you know what freezer burn is? When we talk about food security and food preservation, one of the biggest issues is our packaging of our food. We normally see crystallization or ice within a matter of a couple of weeks once we place a product in the freezer. That freezer burn results oftentimes in the degradation and the lifespan of our food. After 6 months, there was no freezer burn that occurred with Utopia Plastics, no crystallization, and it maintained its barrier properties. That is significant, so much so that this test garnered the attention of Ziploc, the makers of Ziploc. And currently today, we're in trials for our material as an alternative. But you can also see, again, through this report, the heavy presence of crystallization in the material. It has been proven through our method and what we do that Utopia Plastics, through our Utopia model, are able to address all 17 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. That's not just in word, that is through intentionality, to be able to positively impact food security. And one way is to just think about how we do business. As farmers, agriculture, when we're dependent on a technology around agriculture, for us, it was also saying to farmers, we want you to devote 10% of your land to healthy food grow for your communities. Since 2020, the most searched word on Google has been sustainability. We can't afford to miss it because it impacts us all. I've had the opportunity and the distinct privilege of, in December this year, I was invited back. I have an expert certification in sustainable strategies and circular economics when it was just a conversation. The University of Cambridge approached me about using our model as they taught globally over 500 executives on what and their stakeholders on what sustainability means. This year, I went back to teach a workshop at Cambridge to their global MBA cohort on building sustainable ecosystem business models. You don't get here by chance. You don't create a solution that truly provides impact by chance. You do it by intentionality. But I'm going to share with you, I don't have a degree in engineering. I don't have a degree in chemistry. I took a deep dive into studying plant material to address neurofibromatosis 2, which is an incurable growth of tumors that disproportionately affects minority communities. In fact, 1 in 25,000 people are adversely impacted, and it hit my family hard, 3 generations. Those outcomes are a reality, and if we don't think about how we use our natural resources and the impact of human lives, even down to our health and food security, it may very well affect someone that you love. For me, I chose to study plant material, over 600 white papers, to today owning international patents and trademarks and distributing my material globally and entering a partnership with one of the largest petroleum producers in the world. So I challenge you and ask you to simply join us on the journey to utopia, where you imagine something bigger than ourselves, where we believe that the solutions that exist as we are in a room full of women and our allies, that the problems you see as mothers, as spouses, as executives, is still within your power to address and solve. And these summits, and I am so grateful to Irene for extending the invitation to allow me to share this space. But I ask that you join us on the journey to utopia. Thank you so very much.
Wow, Sharina, that's utopia sounds so good. Almost not, it sounds so good to be true. That gave me hope. A couple of questions, and please, with microphones there, we want to invite you into the conversation, so please come on up and we'll get to questions very shortly. Microphones here for you both. I wanted to talk briefly about scaling so we're talking packaging and other solutions here with what you offer. Where are you at in terms of scaling this, and what's the capability that you see from that, and who's the petrochemical company you're partnering with?
So today we have the ability to produce about 10 million pounds monthly. We produce in the U.S. Our motto for scale, our growth cycle is 90 to 120 days. We are very intentional also about the impact that we make for farming. One of the things that has adversely affected the farming industry is broken promises among companies unable to deliver solutions. So we hire a farmer to grow our crops. We then purchase the crops back from them, and that amount is we pay a farmer 10 cents. So with a 7,500 pound yield per acre, it gives a farmer 2 years about $1,500 an acre to be able to do it, and then we buy that back. So we supply the seed, and then we buy the material back. We're intentional about, as we do studies in a region, for instance, what is the import-export look like? What's the key driver of the GDP in that region on whether it's agriculture or what it may be, that we can spearhead the development of manufacturing or opportunity so that it allows a region of the world to become more sustainable within its own borders and build not only taking in, for instance, if they spend a lot in importing goods, how they can build a market for the goods that they're importing and then develop a market for export of those goods as well. It doesn't make sense. Honestly, if logistics-wise, it doesn't make sense for us to just grow somewhere if we're not going to put processing facilities, because at that point, we're increasing emissions if we don't intentionally pay attention to that. So,
thank you. I have a question at the floor. I'm going to ask Ori Bjornsson a question and then go to you. And there's some key themes emerging from this scaling and access, alternative proteins and nutrition, and the circular systems that we've talked about, and then Dr. Graham's point about integration. Ori Bjornsson, you talked about your company being a good business, not a very efficient way of feeding people, is what I took from that. There's a projected demand for between 30 and 70-something% increasing global protein demand by 2050. What's your sense of how achievable that is, and your best case solution for that?
Yeah, I think we will meet the demand. I believe that there is no food shortage in the world. There is a distribution issue. If we take a close sample at my table at lunchtime, half of the food that was at the table went back uneaten. So we are not very good at distributing food, even here where we are talking about it. So I believe we need to improve the distribution. We might also need to improve distribution of water, and we might need to relocate some types of farming. We might do better if we think globally. I know it is a very complicated and difficult task, but we should be able to do it if we really want to sort this out easily. But mankind is very interesting, and we always, in the end, after failures, we will find a solution. And I believe that it's not going to be any different this time. I mean, we had worries when we were reaching 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion, so on and so forth. Maybe the most important thing would be in the end to improve education and improve the standard of life. If we do business with poorer countries, if we start trading with them, life will improve, and as it seems, as soon as life starts to improve, the population growth slows down and we manage the situation much better. So I think there are multiple solutions, and we don't need to produce a lot more food, but we might do so. But if we can improve the distribution and the utilization, then I think we sort out most of the issues.
And some novel protein.